Right, so hello and welcome back to Books and Things and welcome to another video. And today I'm here with my husband Nick.
Hello.
And we're going to be ranking Jane Austen's novels. So, I love Jane Austen a lot. I have read all of her books many times, and Nick has just finished reading.
Just finished the final one.
Yeah. So we thought we would do a ranking today. So we're going to go from sort of our least favourite to our favourite, and we'll do your ranking, and I probably will join in with my ranking because I don't think I've done a ranking for a little while, and I feel like it probably has moved.
I mean, it changes all the time.
Yeah, it does change all the time.
You spend quite a long time pondering the ranking of Jane Austen novels.
Of course I do. I think that's a good use of my time. And now that you've read them all, you can rank them too, which is quite fun. I think we're just going to rank the main 6 novels. I don't think we're going to rank Lady Susan because it's a bit shorter and harder to compare, and you read it a really long time ago.
I have read it. I read it a very long time ago.
It was your first Jane Austen,
it was
wasn't
my first Jane Austen.
Yeah, but we'll just rank the main 6 novels. So, what are you putting in last place?
I am going to put Northanger Abbey in last place.
Which is also my least favourite, conveniently.
That's good. We can start the arguing later, but
yeah.
I think it's, to be honest, I don't remember it very well. I read it 2, 3, maybe 4 years ago. Not that long ago in the grand scheme of things.
It hasn't stayed with me.
It hasn't stayed with me at all. I enjoyed it. I think it was fine, and I quite like some of the Gothic pastiche, but I would just say that it doesn't really wow me in the way that some of her other books did. And it, like I say, it hasn't stayed with me sort of at all. It's got some fun characters.
I think Northanger Abbey for me is, it's my least favourite Jane Austen. I feel like it is just less interesting than her other books. And there are some things I like about it. I like the Gothic pastiche. I think there's some good secondary characters. I find the Thorpes really interesting. But for me, it is less complex and less interesting than Jane Austen's other books, and I feel like it's one, there are some of her books where every time I reread them I'm like, oh, I've spotted lots of new things, whereas I feel like when I reread Northanger Abbey I don't really get anything new out of it.
It's still got some great Jane Austen characters.
Oh yeah, my least favourite Jane Austen book is still a great book.
But I feel like if this was all we had from Jane Austen, we just wouldn't remember her in the same way.
I do also think, so there are 2 of her novels, Northanger Abbey and Persuasion, that were published after her death, and they are shorter than a lot of the rest of her novels. And there is a little bit of me that wonders if Jane Austen had lived another 10 years, would she have done a bit more work on Northanger Abbey and made it longer? And I feel like that's quite a controversial opinion, especially about the other shorter
it is
book
noticeably shorter than half of some of them.
And I just don't think there's as much in it for me, I suppose. So yeah, we should also say, are we going to do spoilers in this video or not?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, yeah. There may be spoilers for Jane Austen's books, be aware. Cool. What are you putting in your penultimate place?
So I think I'm going to tie the next 2,
okay,
actually, because I can't decide. So I'm going to tie Mansfield Park and Persuasion.
So I would also say that my penultimate favourite, my 5th place, would be Persuasion.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I am tying them. I wonder, as I say it, I wonder whether I actually do slightly prefer Mansfield Park. I've said it now, so I'm tying them, but I think I'm putting Persuasion in there because, again, it hasn't really stayed with me. I think that's actually the one I read.
Yeah, last year?
Probably 2 years ago, actually. I think 2 years ago.
Mm.
And I think that I quite enjoyed it, but I didn't. It's actually one of the Jane Austen books I struggled with the most. And I listened to them all on audiobook, I should say, and maybe if I'd read it, I would have had a different experience. But I just found it quite slow, and I don't feel like, for a novel where someone falls off some steps, cracks their head, and is sort of rendered comatose. I don't feel like very much happened. I don't know. I just feel I don't really have a huge amount to say about Persuasion. I don't know. I don't think we ever filmed a video on Persuasion, actually.
No, I don't think we did. We haven't done one on all of them. Yeah.
I think maybe if I had and I'd rewatched that, I would have had more to say. But I just, I don't have any strong feelings about it. I think it was definitely more interesting than Northanger Abbey. It had more going on. I liked the sort of love story and the match more. There were bits of it that I definitely did like, but I just don't have strong feelings on Persuasion.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I feel like for a long time Persuasion ranked a lot more highly for me. But I think, like Northanger Abbey, Persuasion is that bit shorter. And where the longer Jane Austen books, I get so much more like richness on a reread. I feel like actually the more times I've reread Persuasion, the further it's gone down in my ranking. And actually it's interesting what we're saying about audiobooks. I do feel like the most recent time I read Persuasion, I listened to an audiobook and I liked it a lot less. And I do wonder, you know, I feel like some Jane Austen books, Pride and Prejudice especially, is so good on audiobook. I have read Pride and Prejudice so many times and like 2/3 of those times were audiobook. And I kind of feel like I will probably listen to Pride and Prejudice much more than I read it physically for the rest of my life. Whereas Persuasion, I feel like maybe that one is less good on audiobook because it's a sort of quieter novel. I don't know. But I definitely feel like Persuasion is a really loved Jane Austen book. Like I feel it is many people's favourite. And I feel like not that many people would rank it as low down as us. But I just didn't. I just feel like Persuasion is less interesting for me. And I guess maybe, like, I like the love story in Persuasion a lot. I think it's a great love story and there's some really lovely moments in it. And I like Anne Elliot as a character, but I feel like what is going on around the love story is much less interesting to me in Persuasion than what is going on around the love story in other Jane Austen books. Yeah.
Best title, then?
Interestingly, not Jane Austen's title. So Northanger Abbey and Persuasion were published after her death, and her brother Henry published them, and the titles are his, we believe. So I think it was called The Elliots when Jane Austen was working on it.
Persuasion is a better title.
Yeah. And then, so you're in fourth place, you're putting Mansfield Park.
Yeah, well, so it's like I say, I've put them jointly, but so sort of joint fourth, I suppose. But Mansfield Park, I kind of feel quite the opposite to Persuasion in that I do feel strongly about it, but I have quite mixed feelings on it.
Yeah.
In that I think Mansfield Park was a really interesting book, and I know you're much fonder of it than I am. I think I love a lot of the characters. I think Henry Crawford is fascinating. I think Fanny Price is a great character.
Yeah.
And I think there's some really interesting stuff about, like, morality and class and, like, sort of...
And home and belonging. Mansfield Park is, like, thematically fascinating to me.
Cruelty, actually.
Yeah,
like,
and depression and sort of bullying, like Mrs. Norris and everything that she does.
Mrs. Norris,
she's just the worst. Like, I hate her so much. And she's so well created a character and such a good example of that kind of horrible behaviour. Yeah.
But I just find... And I think the whole novel is about Fanny being steadfast and being like, this is the one thing that I care about and I want this. And I will, like, you know, I'm not moving from it. But unfortunately, it's that she wants to marry her cousin, who's also, like, the most pathetic weed ever. Like, he's really rubbish.
Yeah, he's not the best, but... Yeah.
She'd have had a much more interesting life with Henry Crawford.
But I don't think she'd have had a happier life.
I don't know. Like... She
wants a, like, quiet, you know... chilled life, and I think she's more likely to have a quiet life with Edmund.
He's barely got a pulse. Like, he's just sort of there.
Poor old Edmund.
That's how I describe Edmund in Mansfield Park. He's there. Like,
I find him more interesting than you do.
I don't think he's very interesting, and also, like, he does. I think the thing is that, like, he's interesting because he sort of, like, does Henry Crawford deserve Fanny? He obviously, like, makes a real effort, but also, like, I think the suggestion is that ultimately he wouldn't have, like,
he can't
sustain
be
it. And I think Fanny is interesting because I think there is a bit where you're kind of like, oh, maybe she should, and then she doesn't, and, like, kind of that's Jane Austen's point, is that Fanny is constant. But, like...
Yeah, it kind of doesn't matter, actually, whether Fanny Price would have had a more interesting life with Henry or with Edmund. Because she doesn't love... she doesn't love Henry, and she does love Edmund.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting, but also, like, Edmund isn't constant. Like,
no, I know.
Edmund also doesn't deserve Fanny.
Yeah.
Like, basically, Fanny probably deserves Mansfield Park, but that, like...
Yeah, but she gets Mansfield Park, you know, and, like, she gets to have... a home, and that's what she's been searching for, and that's kind of more about that. And she gets to, like, by marrying Edmund, she will be respected in a way that she hasn't been, which I think is quite important.
And I think all of that is good and it's interesting. I think there's, and I probably would be one I would reread.
But it is a really interesting one to reread because it's so complex.
I think just certainly at the moment, its flaws make it
Yeah.
Its flaws put it below the next three,
Yeah.
which I kind of
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
are all basically perfect. But
So in my fourth place, I'm going to have Emma. And I think it's worth me saying that my, like, 1 to 4 are quite a way above my 5 and 6. Like, I love Emma a lot more than Persuasion, I would say. And I love Emma. And Emma is a really interesting one where, again, I feel like the more times I read it, the more I spot within it and the more, like, fascinating things I find within it. I don't like Emma that much as a character. I find her quite frustrating. But I do think her sort of arc is interesting. There's so many other minor characters who I love. And I think the sort of supporting cast in Emma are great. And the small town stuff and the gossip, I love the subplot. I think it's got, like, the best subplot in all of Austen. And I think, like, the twists and turns of the plot are fascinating. And I feel like it's such a rich portrait of this small town, this village, which I just absolutely love. And yeah, I think the more I reread Emma, the more I love it. And I've just finished rereading it, listening to it on audiobook, and I just had, like, such a lovely time with it. I think it's such a great book. Yeah. So I love it a lot, but not quite as much as my top 3.
So I'm going to put Emma in third.
Very good.
Because I think I basically agree with everything you said. I think Emma is incredibly funny. I hate Emma. She's a bad person, but I do think she's great. Like, and
and she's very real as well. Like, all her flaws are quite human.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's just some really standout moments. I think the bit where she's mean to Miss Bates is just like, you're just like, it's heartbreaking, but also it is kind of great and it's funny as well. Yeah, I don't have much to say really beyond what you've said. It's got a great story. It's got a good love story. I like Mr. Knightley.
I like Mr. Knightley a lot, and I think they are interesting. Like, you know, obviously, we were talking about Fanny Price and Edmund, who are the other sort of, like, family friends, or family, but who go on to maybe fall in love. But then I think that kind of story and that kind of love story feels much more like a love story in Emma, between Emma and Mr. Knightley, who have this sort of similar, like, we've known each other for a really long time, we're family friends, there are all these connections. I think they work quite well together, and I think that love story is really nice. Yeah.
So what would you put at number 3 then?
Sense and Sensibility, I guess. Yeah. I love Sense and Sensibility a lot. It's interesting because for a long, long time, Sense and Sensibility was my least favourite Jane Austen novel, because I feel like I thought the love stories were, like, a little bit underdeveloped, and I was always like, oh, why are we always seeing things about Marianne from Eleanor's perspective and vice versa? And I just wasn't, like, getting it. And then I've reread it a lot, and there was a point, like, 3 or 4 years ago when I reread it and I was like, oh, actually, if I think about it much more as a novel about siblings, I like it much more. And then I reread it the year after, and I was like, oh, I love this now. And I just, like, fell in love with it. I did make a video at the time that I will leave a link down below, because I went on about that a lot more. But I think something just clicked, and suddenly I saw all of the clever things that Austen was doing, and I saw that, like, it is the point that you are seeing, like, Marianne's story from Eleanor's perspective at times. I love the relationship between the two sisters. I love all the sort of pseudo-sibling relationships. I love the sort of found family home themes, and I love the supporting cast so much. I think the minor characters in Sense and Sensibility are incredible. Like, Mrs. Jennings is just one of my absolute favourite characters in all of Austen. I find the Palmers really interesting. Like, I just think there's so many interesting characters within Sense and Sensibility, and, like, John Willoughby I think is a fascinating creation, and I just think there's, like, so much great stuff going on in this book, but I just don't love it quite as much as my top 2.
So
Your second place.
In second place, I'm going to put Pride and Prejudice, which, to be honest, probably is the best one. Like, I feel like it's the most perfect one. There's a reason why it's the one everyone knows the story of, and it's sort of the most famous, and it's had all the adaptations and had all the love.
And it's such a good love story.
Yeah, it's a great love story. Yeah. It's so psychologically well done. You know, I think Mr. Darcy's proposal to Elizabeth, where he's like, I love you, but you're also rubbish, is such a wonderful moment. Like, it's just a great, like, it's such a wonderful character study.
Yeah.
And I think Mr. Darcy is probably the best character in terms of, like, the most real character in all of Austen, I think.
I think both Elizabeth and Darcy are such interesting characters and have such interesting character arcs. and that stuff is just done so well in Pride and Prejudice, and it's so funny, and the supporting cast are so great.
And I read it knowing exactly what was going to happen, pretty much. There was almost nothing that surprised me. And it, I still loved it. I still thought it was fantastic. The only improvement would be if Mr. Collins was murdered.
So that's your second place. My second place is Mansfield Park, which we've already spoken about a bit. But I just find it so thematically fascinating. And it is another one, a bit like Sense and Sensibility, that grew on me, though it grew on me earlier. But the first time I read it, I was like, well, it's a bit boring. It's not as good as Love Story as Pride and Prejudice, is it? And then that was when I was a teenager. And then I studied it at university, and I just found like so much in it. So much richness and so much nuance and so many complicated things to look at. And I love Fanny Price as a character because she is a much sort of subtler character than many of Jane Austen's heroines. She's much quieter, she's much more reserved, but she also has this sort of like quiet inner strength. And also, you know, like, lots of us are not Elizabeth Bennet, lots of us are not funny and brave. And actually, I feel, you know, I feel a character like Fanny, who is not always emotionally or physically strong, is actually something that is quite relatable, and I really like her a lot. And I think because Jane Austen is so famous for Pride and Prejudice, which is, you know, one of the greatest love stories ever, I therefore think we often go into Jane Austen's books looking for love stories. And a lot of her books are love stories and have love stories in them, and often the plot is sort of shaped by a sort of courtship narrative. But I think there are some of her books which are much less love stories than others. And I think Mansfield Park and Sense and Sensibility especially, when I stopped being so focused on the love story, I loved the books so much more because I saw all of the other really interesting things going on in them. So now on to the favourites.
The top, favourite. So there is, I think, some recency bias here, because I've just literally finished it. And I think, like I said, there's an argument that Pride and Prejudice is the more perfect book, but I think Sense and Sensibility is the best one, and it's my favourite. I just loved it. I think because I read Pride and Prejudice and Emma, and loved both of them, and then I read sort of Northanger Abbey, Persuasion, and Mansfield Park, and sort of felt. And actually, I think I read Mansfield Park, which I liked and had a lot to say about, and then I read Persuasion and Northanger Abbey that I didn't really.
Yeah.
It's been a really long time since I've read like a perfect Jane Austen, and actually, like, this is a perfect Jane Austen. I think you've already talked about quite a lot of the stuff that's great about it, but I think it's got the most interesting characters. I think, like Willoughby, Marianne, Eleanor, Edward Ferrars. You could write an essay on Edward Ferrars like very easily, and about how he's sort of incredibly like
the complications of duty and like what you want to do versus what you should do, and also like he is another interesting character, like sort of a character like Fanny, who is very shy, and that means as a reader you don't always get to know him, but also I find that really interesting. And also there are certain points where he's just like really awkward and shy about everything, which I sympathise with.
But I think we talked about this in the video we've done on it, but I think it's a novel about like kind of like Mansfield Park about a home, but about building a home like after being exiled, and about finding a society of decent people who are sort of mutual support and love,
and who you can trust, I guess.
And about acknowledging that those people are flawed and not expecting those people to be perfect, but also being sort of supported by those people. And I think it's also one that acknowledges more than the others the kind of darkness of Regency society. And I think it's the novel to me that felt like it had the most stakes. There were sort of all sorts of points where I thought this could actually go sort of horribly wrong. And not knowing the story like I did in Pride and Prejudice, wow, I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's probably the least happy ending. Or the most complicated ending. But I also think it's great. I love the characters. I love that sort of... It's not just about a love story. It's about finding your place in the world together with your family and other people. And I think that is... I think it's really heartwarming. And I love it.
Good. Will you hand me back Pride and Prejudice? Because that is my favourite, obviously. Because it is the best.
It quite possibly.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, we've already spoken quite a lot about why Pride and Prejudice is great, but it's so funny. It's so charming. It's so like the characterization is so great. The sort of subtle social criticism within it is so great. The dialogue is fantastic. I just love it so much, and every time I reread it, I just have such a great time with it. Like, it's one of the most enjoyable books for me, and it's one I've reread a lot, and every time I read it, I just have a lovely, lovely time.
Is it also the funniest? I feel like it might be the funniest.
Yeah, I mean, Jane Austen is very funny, and there are lots of funny moments in all her books. But yeah, Pride and Prejudice is maybe the funniest.
I think it might be the most laugh out loud funny.
Like Mr. Collins's proposal to Elizabeth is one of the best comic scenes. But also, it's so good because it's so funny, but also it's awful.
Yeah.
And there's such a pressure of her to say yes, and actually, yeah. There's a moment in that scene where he's proposing and Elizabeth, and he sort of has a brief pause, and Elizabeth is so amused that she can't say no, but also then he won't take no for an answer, and all of that is so slimy. But it's also so funny, and I think that is just great. It's very, very funny, Pride and Prejudice, and everything in Lady Catherine I find just excellent. Right, so you like Jane Austen? That's good.
She's quite good. Who knew?
I mean, quite a lot of people. But there we go. What would you reread first then? If you're,
Ooh,
in 3 years, I'll tell you to take part in Jane Austen July again, and you can reread one.
I don't know what I reread first. I think the ones I would look to reread, I probably would look to reread Persuasion, maybe as
physically rather than audio, yeah.
Just because I feel like maybe I'm not giving it a fair hearing.
Yeah.
So I think that probably, in some respects, that was probably the one that most merits a reread. I think I would. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't bother to reread Northanger Abbey. I kind of feel like that I've read it, I've got what I'll get out of it. I don't feel any particular reason to revisit those characters. I'd reread all the others. I think I'd probably reread Emma, and just because I don't know the story, but I do know the story now, but I didn't know the story going into it.
And it is also, Emma is one more than any other, I think, where once you know all the twists and turns of the plot, your reread of it, you spot a lot of things that you didn't spot the first time, and that's really fun. It's a really fun reread where you're like, oh, there's a clue there, and there's a clue there, and there's a clue there buried in Miss Bates going on a tangent, and it's great.
Yeah.
That's a really fun part of rereading Emma.
I mean, to be honest, I quite like to reread Sense and Sensibility again, knowing where the plot's going, because I feel like actually I was kind of like, oh, what's going to happen? And
and there are things to spot about characters' feelings, and all of that stuff,
I would reread Pride and Prejudice as well, obviously, because it's great. And Mansfield Park, I think, I don't feel a burning desire to reread it, but I would be interested to reread it, because I feel like, again, I know you love it sort of deeply, and maybe I'm not giving it a fair hearing.
Yeah, although, it's not deeply beloved by all. I feel like the conventional ranking, or it's very common for people to put Pride and Prejudice first, and the other sort of two big favourites I found when I did my collaborative video earlier on in the month were Persuasion and Emma. Those are the other two that were the key favourites, which was interesting.
Best protagonist.
I do love Fanny Price, but I do also love Elizabeth Bennet. Who's your...
Yeah, no, I think it's Elizabeth Bennet. I mean, I was going to... Well, is Marianne Dashwood the protagonist of Sensibility? I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah, so
Is it a deuteragonist, or...
Yeah, so when, as it's Jane Austen July, people often do, a ranking of heroes and heroines, and usually Marianne and Eleanor both get into that ranking. But I do think much more of it is from Eleanor's perspective. But it is...
I think, having just read it, my view would be that actually Marianne is not the protagonist of Sense and Sensibility. I think it is Eleanor's novel.
I think it's interesting because I think if you see a film or a TV adaptation of A Sense and Sensibility, it feels like there are two protagonists.
Yeah.
But actually, a lot more of the book is in Eleanor's head.
Yeah. I'd maybe go for Marianne Dashwood, but I think probably it's still Lizzie Bennet.
Yeah, she is great. Who's your favourite of the men?
What, all of them?
Well, the love interest men, but you can pick a minor character if you want, but we'll do minor characters next.
Favourite love interest?
Yeah.
I mean, Edmund is at the bottom.
That's fair.
It's just rubbish.
well, who's your favourite?
Are we including rakes?
No, let's do that afterwards. Favourite love interest? Favourite successful love interest?
That's a good question. I think probably Mr. Darcy, actually. I think he's the most realised character.
Yeah.
And I also feel like I completely believe his and Lizzie relationship. And I'm not saying don't believe the others, but like I think I do actually really like Colonel Brandon as a character as well.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if he's a great love interest.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather have a pint with Colonel Brandon than Mr. Darcy, but I think maybe Mr. Darcy is the better love interest.
I miss
I'd marry Mr. Darcy. But I'd have a pint with Colonel Brandon.
Yeah. I think, Mr. Darcy would be up there for me, but also I really like Mr. Knightley. I think he's interesting.
Mr. Knightley's, that's a good choice.
Yeah. Okay, so your favourite rake, or your best realised rake, you don't have to like them.
Henry Crawford.
Yeah.
I think I really like Henry Crawford. I think he's such an interesting character.
Yeah.
I think there's a version of Mansfield Park where he's not the rake, which is great.
Henry Crawford and John Willoughby, I think, are fascinating characters.
So I think Willoughby is a great character as well.
Yeah.
I like Henry Crawford, and I kind of I feel a bit sorry for him in Mansfield Park, whereas Willoughby, while I think he's very believable and very human, can burn in hell.
I don't like him, but I think he's very, very well realised. Okay, favourite minor character?
Favourite minor character, as in the best one. I mean, Miss Bates is a great minor
I love
character.
Miss Bates. I love Mrs. Jennings.
I mean, Mr. Collins is a great minor character.
Yeah. Obviously, you hate him with a burning passion.
I don't think there's a minor character I feel more strongly towards than Mr. Collins.
Yeah. He's so well created, isn't he?
But I do like Miss Bates. I actually really like Mrs. Jennings as well. Actually,
she's great. Right.
Favourite mother.
Oh, of the heroines.
Just mother.
I mean, Mrs. Jennings is a mother. She's probably my favourite mother then. I think Mrs. Jennings is great. Yeah.
I think it's either Mrs. Bennet.
Yeah, she is also fascinating.
Because she's fascinating.
So complex,
And I think actually reading the book, she's much more complicated than she's portrayed in the adaptation. I think Mrs. Bennet is probably one of the characters who is the most maligned. And there is a lot that's objectionable about Mrs. Bennet, but I think she's much more. You understand her much better, I think, in the books. But I also actually think maybe Mrs. Ferris for just being awful.
Yeah. Well, actually, Lady Catherine is another mother who is also excellently awful.
True.
Maybe Lady Catherine. I love Lady Catherine. Obviously, she's the worst, but also what a character. She has some wonderful lines. All right. That's a good ranking, I think. So thank you very much for watching. Let us know down in the comments what your ranking of Jane Austen's novels would be. And that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with another bookish video.